Never react. Never explain. Just ignore. Sounds like strength. Until you realize you can follow all three rules and still be completely controlled by someone. Don't answer them. Then spend 3 hours replaying what they said. Don't argue. Then have the entire conversation again in your head, saying everything you wish you'd said. Don't check their messages. Then check whether they're online, whether they viewed your story, whether they noticed your silence. You've just learned to react without making a sound. Because people don't only provoke your anger, they can provoke your attention, your curiosity, your need to be understood, your need to prove you're right, your need to know what they're thinking. And once someone learns what consistently captures your attention, they learn what moves you. This is what Marcus Aurelius understood. 2,000 years ago, he ruled an empire surrounded by people who could provoke him, flatter him, challenge him, and undermine him. Yet he understood something most people still get wrong. Restraint isn't about looking unaffected. It's about refusing to let someone else decide where your mind goes. Because the moment you have to explain yourself to someone who's already committed to misunderstanding you, you're no longer controlling the conversation. You're participating in it on their terms. Today, I'm going to show you 7 dark Stoic psychology tricks that expose exactly where other people can still get inside your head. Not the watered-down, Instagram quote version of Stoicism. The real one. The one built for a world full of manipulators, fake friends, and people who want a reaction out of you so they can control the narrative. You'll learn how to disarm people without saying a word. How to make explanations irrelevant. How to stop giving people predictable access to your attention. And most importantly, how to know when you're actually in control instead of merely performing it. Because the goal isn't to become someone who never reacts. It's to become someone who no longer reacts on command. And the 7th trick reveals the one thing you're still doing that gives people access to you even when you say nothing. Let's begin. 1. Make your attention expensive. Here's the first rule. Stop treating every disturbance like an emergency. Someone texts you. You don't have to open it. Someone posts something. You don't have to check it. Someone changes their tone. You don't have to decode it. Someone doesn't reply. You don't have to find out why. That sounds simple. It isn't. Because most people have trained themselves to respond to anything that creates uncertainty. What did they mean? Why did they say it like that? Why are they online but not replying? Did they see my post? Are they trying to get my attention? And now you're investigating. Not because you need the information, because you need relief from not knowing. That's expensive. You're giving someone your attention just because they created a question. Don't. Let the question sit. Let the silence sit. Let the uncertainty sit. You don't need an answer to everything that bothers you. Marcus Aurelius understood this long before notifications existed. He wrote, "For nowhere, either with more quiet or more freedom from trouble, does a man retire than into his own soul." Your mind needs somewhere to retire to. Not every person gets an invitation. Not every situation gets your investigation. Not every feeling gets a response. So here's the test. The next time something pulls at your attention, don't follow it immediately. Wait. Ask one question. Does this actually require me? If it does, handle it. If it doesn't, leave it alone. That's it. Because attention creates familiarity. Familiarity creates predictability. And predictability creates leverage. If someone knows, you'll check. They can make you check. If they know, you'll explain. They can make you explain. If they know, you'll defend yourself. They can keep putting you on trial. Stop making yourself so easy to reach. Your attention should cost something. Not money. access. And once you stop giving it away so easily, you'll notice something uncomfortable. The people who were used to getting reactions from you start trying harder. That's when you discover what they actually wanted: your attention or your control. If you're done giving your attention to things that don't deserve it, right? My attention belongs to me, not for the algorithm, not for me, for you, because a decision becomes real when your behavior starts matching it. 2. Don't give people a map to your emotions. Here's what people don't realize about their reactions. They leave clues. You don't have to tell someone what bothers you. Show them once. That's enough to start a pattern. Someone makes a small comment about your intelligence. You immediately defend yourself. They notice. Not because there's some psychological mastermind, because people notice what gets a reaction. Next time, they bring it up again. You defend yourself again. Now they know. Touch that subject, and you'll respond. Same thing with your reputation, your intentions, being ignored, being misunderstood, being compared to someone else. Someone questions what you meant, and suddenly you're explaining yourself for 5 minutes. Why? Because something in you says, I need to correct this. And that's the clue. Your strongest reactions usually point towards something you feel you have to protect. Your intelligence, your image, your reputation, your intentions, your position, your need to be seen as right. The reaction reveals the attachment. And once the pattern becomes obvious, you become predictable. They don't need to control you. They just need to know which subject makes you react. That's the part people get wrong about emotional control. They think being calm means keeping your face straight. It doesn't. You can look completely calm and still be predictable. The real question is, can someone reliably predict what will make you defend yourself? If yes, they have a map. So don't give them one. That doesn't mean becoming emotionless. And it doesn't mean swallowing everything someone says. Feel it. Notice it. Then give yourself a moment before deciding what deserves to come out of your mouth. Because the first reaction is information. It isn't an instruction. Someone insults you. You feel the urge to correct them. Pause. Someone questions your intentions. You want to explain. Pause. Someone compares you to another person. You want to prove yourself. Pause. Not because you're weak, because you're collecting information about yourself. What exactly did they touch? Why did that particular comment bother you? What are you trying so hard to protect? Those questions make you harder to manipulate, because now you're watching the button too. And here's the uncomfortable part. Sometimes the person pressing the button isn't the problem. The button is. If one sentence can reliably pull you into an argument, that's useful information. Don't hide it from yourself. Study it. Then stop handing other people the remote. Because once you stop making your emotional patterns obvious, you become much harder to read. But there's another way people can pull you into their frame, even when they don't make you angry. They can simply make you feel like you have something to prove. They make you want to explain yourself. Number 3, the explanation trap. Not every misunderstanding deserves a correction, because this is where intelligent people get trapped. They think, if I explain it properly, they'll understand. Maybe. But what if they don't want to understand? What if they've already decided what you are? Now, watch what happens. You explain. They challenge it. You clarify. They reinterpret it. You add context. They question the context. You answer that. And suddenly you're defending yourself in a trial you never agreed to enter. That's the trap. The conversation stopped being about truth. Now, it's about winning their interpretation of you. and you can lose hours trying to do that. There is a difference between explaining and needing to be understood. Healthy explanation has a purpose. You communicate. You correct something important. You take responsibility. You resolve confusion. Then you're done. Compulsive explanation is different. You keep talking because you can't tolerate their conclusion. You need them to see your intentions. You need them to know you're not the bad person. You need them to admit you were right. You need them to stop thinking badly of you. That's not communication anymore. That's approval seeking wearing a suit. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. You cannot explain someone out of an opinion they are committed to keeping. Give them 10 explanations. They can build an 11th objection. Give them more context. They can reinterpret that too. Because the problem was never a lack of information. It was the conclusion. And once you understand that, you stop trying to solve an unwillingness to understand with more words. There's an old line in Proverbs. A fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in till afterwards. The point isn't silence for the sake of silence. It's restraint. Not everything you know needs to leave your mouth. So here's the rule. Explain once when the situation genuinely requires it. Then stop. Let them misunderstand. Let them disagree. Let them keep the wrong opinion. You don't have to chase every interpretation of you. Because the moment you need someone to interpret you correctly, you've given their opinion authority over your peace. That's the part nobody tells you about over-explaining. You're not always defending the truth. Sometimes, you're defending your identity. And if someone can make you prove who you are every time they question you, they don't need to control your behavior. They only need to ask. So stop handing people unlimited access to your reasoning. Say what needs to be said. Say it clearly. Then let the silence do something your explanations never could. Show that you don't need permission to be understood. Because the next level of psychological control isn't saying less. It's knowing what information should never be given away in the first place. Trick 4. Let uncertainty do the work. You don't need to know what they think. That's the trap. Most people think uncertainty belongs to the other person. It doesn't. You're the one trying to escape it. Why did they say that? What did they mean? Are they angry? Did I offend them? Are they trying to provoke me? So you investigate. You explain. You ask. You respond. Anything to make the uncertainty disappear. Stop. Let it exist. Because the person who cannot tolerate uncertainty will always be the easiest person to rush. And this is where restraint becomes powerful. Not because silence makes people uncomfortable, because you stopped letting uncertainty make you uncomfortable. That's different. Very different. If someone expects you to react, and you don't, they have less information. If they expect an explanation, and you don't give one, they have less information. If they expect an immediate answer, and you take your time, they have less information. But don't turn this into a game. If you're thinking, good, now they'll wonder what I'm thinking, you've already lost the point. You're still thinking about their reaction to your reaction. That's not freedom. That's another form of attachment. Stoic restraint isn't, I'll stay silent so they feel uncertain. It's, they can be uncertain, I don't need to fix it. That's it. You don't owe people immediate access to your internal state. And you don't owe yourself immediate certainty. You don't have to resolve every uncomfortable question the moment it appears. Let the message sit. Let the accusation sit. Let the awkward silence sit. Let them wonder. Not because you're trying to make them wonder, because their uncertainty is not your emergency. And once you understand that, your behavior changes. You stop answering under pressure. You stop defending yourself just because someone demands an answer. You stop turning someone else's urgency into your urgency. You create a gap, and inside that gap, you get your choice back. That's what the pause is for. Not intimidation. Choice. The old pattern was, they provoke, you react. Now, they provoke, you pause, you decide. 3 seconds can be enough. Sometimes 10. Sometimes you don't respond at all. The length doesn't matter. The ownership does. But there's a test. If you go silent, then check whether they noticed. You haven't detached. If you wait for their reaction, you're still reacting. If you wonder whether your silence is bothering them, your attention is still with them. So don't use uncertainty as a weapon. Use it as space. Let people have questions you don't answer. Let people have opinions you don't correct. Let people sit with a version of events you refuse to control. You don't have to manage every perception. And once you stop rushing to remove uncertainty, something else becomes possible. You stop needing to control the outcome. That's where restraint gets real. Because the next trap is subtler. You can stop reacting, stop explaining, stop chasing, and still be completely attached to what happens next. That's the one thing you have to kill next. 5. Withdraw your participation, not your judgment. Here's a situation most people mishandle. Someone keeps bringing up the same issue with you. You've answered it. They didn't like the answer. So they ask again. You explain it differently. They challenge that. You give more context. They find another problem. Now, you're 20 minutes into a conversation, and you're still defending the same decision you made 20 minutes ago. Stop. Not because you've suddenly run out of arguments, because the conversation has stopped producing anything. That's the moment people confuse a boundary with silence. They think the options are, keep arguing, or cut the person off. No. There's a third option. Withdraw your participation. Take this example. You tell someone, I'm not available this weekend. They ask why. You explain. They disagree. You explain again. They tell you what you should be doing. You defend your decision. They question your priorities. You defend those too. Look at what happened. Your original decision required one sentence. Now you're giving them a presentation. And here's the part you need to catch. You are no longer communicating. You're asking permission. So don't. You can say, I understand you disagree. My decision hasn't changed. And stop. No second defense. No emotional exit speech. No 10-minute explanation about why you're a good person. The decision stays. The participation ends. That's a boundary. Not, you need to understand me. But, you don't need to agree with me for my decision to remain valid. That's a completely different position. And this matters because sometimes the person isn't actually the problem. The pattern is the endless debate, the repeated justification, the expectation that every decision must survive someone else's approval. Leave that pattern. You don't necessarily have to leave the person. You can still answer them, still respect them, still care about them. You just stop entering the same courtroom every time they object. Because that's what some interactions become. A courtroom. You're the defendant. They're the judge. And every explanation becomes another piece of evidence they get to cross-examine. Why keep showing up? You don't need to win a trial you never agreed to enter. That's the difference between withdrawal and avoidance. Avoidance says, I don't want to deal with this. Withdrawal says, I've dealt with it. I'm not repeating it. One runs from the problem. The other refuses to feed the pattern. And here's the uncomfortable part. You may have to let someone think you're wrong. You may have to let them call you difficult. You may have to let them believe your decision was selfish. You may even have to let them misunderstand your reasons. That's the price of having boundaries without begging for approval. A boundary isn't a speech. It's a change in what you participate in. And once you understand that, you stop asking, "How do I make them stop?" You start asking, "What am I still participating in?" That's the question that changes everything. Because you can leave the conversation, leave the argument, leave the room, and still carry the entire interaction around in your head. If this changed the way you think about silence, don't keep it to yourself. Someone you know is probably still wasting energy trying to win conversations that should have ended minutes ago. Send them this video. And if this is the kind of thinking you want more of, hit like. Not for me. For the signal it sends you. This is the kind of content worth your attention. 6. Stop defending the version of you they invented. Some insults attack your behavior. Others attack your identity. And those are far more dangerous. You're selfish. You've become arrogant. You think you're better than everyone. You're not the person you used to be. You don't care about anyone. Notice what just happened. They didn't say, "What you did was selfish." They said, "You are selfish." That's a different attack. And your mind immediately wants to correct it. That's not who I am. There it is. The trap. You're no longer discussing what happened. You're defending yourself against a label. And once you start defending the label, the conversation has no finish line. Because how do you prove you're not selfish? Explain another decision. How do you prove you're not arrogant? Explain your intentions. How do you prove you still care? Give them evidence. And now you're trying to convince someone of an identity they invented 5 minutes ago. Why? You know who you are. Or at least, you should. Marcus Aurelius saw this contradiction clearly. Often have I marveled how each one of us loves himself above all men, yet sets less store by his own opinion of himself than by that of everyone else. That's brutal. You can spend years forming your character. Then let one person's opinion of you ruin your peace in 10 minutes. Why? Because somewhere inside, their judgment became more important than your own knowledge of yourself. So when someone labels you, don't automatically defend it. Examine it. Is there something useful here? Is there something you actually need to correct? Did your behavior genuinely hurt someone? If yes, correct it. No speech required. No identity crisis required. But if there's nothing there, leave the label with the person who created it. Because someone else's interpretation of you is not automatically evidence about you. And here's the part most people miss. You can be misunderstood without being misrepresented by reality. Someone can call you selfish. That doesn't make you selfish. Someone can call you arrogant. That doesn't make you arrogant. Someone can decide you've changed. Maybe you have. And maybe that's the part they're reacting to. You don't need to rush in and explain which version of you they're allowed to believe. Let your behavior answer. Over time, it will. That's the advantage of character. It doesn't need a courtroom defense every time somebody challenges it. So the next time someone tells you who you are, don't ask, "How do I convince them that's not me?" Ask, "Is there anything here I need to learn?" If there is, take it. If there isn't, leave it. No argument. No performance. No identity defense. Because you don't need to win an argument about who you are. Your life will keep providing the evidence. And now we reach the deepest contradiction in this entire video. Number 7. Don't turn your absence into a message. Here's how you know you're not detached. You're still hoping they notice. You stopped replying. Fine. But then you check. Did they message? Did they notice? Did they wonder where you went? Did they finally understand? Did they regret what they did? Did they check your profile? Did they notice your silence? Stop. Look at what happened. You removed your words, but you're still having a conversation, just silently. And that's the most deceptive form of detachment, because now your absence has a purpose. You're hoping it communicates. You don't matter to me anymore. But if you're hoping they receive that message, they still matter. That's the reversal. You can disappear and still be emotionally present. You can stop speaking and still be performing for the person. You can ignore their messages while secretly waiting for them to send another. That's not detachment. That's communication without words. So here's the test. Ask yourself, would I still withdraw if I knew they would never notice? No profile check, no waiting, no wondering, no fantasy about them finally realizing what they lost. Assume they'll never notice. Would you still choose the same distance? If yes, you're probably doing it for yourself. If no, you're still trying to influence them. And that distinction matters, because there is a huge difference between I don't want access to this person and I want this person to realize they no longer have access to me. The first is freedom. The second is still attachment. And this is where the entire idea of ignoring collapses. The goal was never to make someone feel ignored. The goal was to become unavailable to the need to be noticed. That's harder, because now there's nothing to perform. No strategic silence. No carefully timed absence. No checking for a reaction. No wondering whether they finally understand. You simply stop participating. And then you move on. Not loudly, not dramatically, not so they can see how unaffected you are. You just stop making their reaction part of the equation. That's the final level. Because the person who still needs you to notice that they don't care, still cares. The person who needs to be misunderstood correctly, still needs approval. The person who needs their silence to send a message, is still communicating. And the person who needs someone else to regret losing them, is still waiting for something from them. So ask yourself one final question. If they never noticed your absence, would you still choose it? If the answer is yes, then you're no longer ignoring them. You're simply living without them. And that's the difference between performing detachment and actually being free. Here's the part nobody tells you. This was never about ignoring people. That's too small. It was about access. Who gets your attention? Who gets your reaction? Who gets your explanation? Who gets to know what's happening inside you? Who gets your participation? Who gets to define you? And finally, who still gets to matter enough for you to want a reaction from them? That's the real progression. And once you see it, Stoicism stops being, how do I stop people from disrespecting me? That's the wrong question. The better question is, why does their behavior have the authority to disturb me? Because that's where the power is. Not in controlling them, in removing their authority over you. So, never react. Not because you have nothing to say, because you decide what deserves a response. Never explain. Not because communication is weakness, because you don't need universal approval to remain secure in who you are. Just ignore. Not to punish them, not to make them wonder, not to make them chase. Ignore what doesn't deserve access to you. That's the difference between performing power and having it. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to become mysterious. You don't need to become unreachable. You need to become expensive to access. Your attention, your emotions, your explanations, your identity, your participation, they are yours. And nobody gets automatic access. Not because you've learned how to make people react to you, but because you've stopped needing them to. That's the final shift. The moment you stop needing your silence to be noticed, your silence finally becomes freedom. If you want the next level, watch the video on your screen. Because the next step isn't learning how to ignore people. It's learning how to stop needing them to understand you. Subscribe and keep going.